fanatics, welcome to episode 95 of the Bulletproof Podcast. I am your host, Chris the Brain. Chad Cruz is on assignment, and that means he's moving from the guest chair to the co-host chair. My good friend, the Toyman, Chris DePetrillo. Chris, thank you for doing this show with me.
I'm locked and loaded as always. It is a pleasure to join you. Missing our third stooge tonight, but I think you and I can handle it.
I do believe we can, and we are going to be going back in time. We haven't been in the 80s in quite some time, and we're really getting right at the beginning of the 80s for our discussion of the Exterminator. But before we get into that, we got some news, and I hate that this is like becoming a regular segment, this second show in a row, where we've had to talk about people in the action world that we have lost, but shocking news late Monday of this week. Treat Williams in a fatal motorcycle accident. Definitely gone too soon, Chris, but boy, did he leave us some great movies.
He did. I know that Joe Piscopo kind of poked fun at it as in his act at one point, but I always enjoyed Dead Heat. I think that's a great movie, and it's definitely got that cult fandom, that cult audience out there. And he picked up the slack when Tom Berenger left the Substitute franchise, and those sequels. I enjoyed them all. I enjoyed that entire run, and he did a great job stepping in Berenger's shoes in the second, third, and fourth film.
Yeah, I mean, and that's never an easy thing to do, obviously, to kind of pick up a franchise or continue a franchise after like the star that is synonymous with it leaves. Treat Williams did it, and he did it fantastically. I think another great example would be Sasha Mitchell, who did it with the Kickboxer series. But
Oh,
yeah,
yeah, my
definitely.
thoughts on Kickboxer too, for sure.
And if you want to hear them, go check out the archives because we did in fact cover Kickboxer 2. And as a matter of fact, when this drops, I believe it's Kickboxer 2's anniversary. Released June 14th, 1991. So
32 years. Oh,
yeah,
I remember
yeah.
the first time I saw it and taped it off television. That just hit me right there.
There you go. But yeah, definitely our condolences go out to Treat Williams' family and his friends, and obviously, I know a lot of fans just reeling from this information, and yeah, not good, not good. Hopefully, again, I hope this has not become a regular feature here on the podcast when we kick things off. But how about some good news after that? We got some good
Uh,
news. Our friend of the show, friend of the site, Michael Worth, big weekend this past weekend at Tribeca in New York. He was there for the premiere of his long-awaited Bruceploitation documentary. He's been working on this thing for years. Enter the Clones of Bruce Lee, and I am anxiously awaiting news as to when I will be able to see this film, Chris. I know you're anxious to see it as well.
I am. We recently covered some of the famous Bruceploitation entries on the site on bulletproofaction.com, and we've long been fans of that genre, but no one is a bigger fan of Bruceploitation than Michael Worth, and it's
Yeah.
nice to see him getting his kudos by getting this film out there, and I am equally eager to watch this one.
A labor of love for him, and I hopefully we can maybe get him back on the show here soon to talk about that, and maybe a PM Entertainment Classic. We'll see what we can do, but definitely would love to talk to him again, and I really would just like to talk to him about how a dream could come true because I've yet to experience that in my lifetime. uh, I get almost to dreams come true, and then it doesn't quite happen. So I'd like to know what it feels like when a dream actually comes true, Chris.
I mean, your dog is actually sleeping and not bothering you during the course of this recording, so,
Well,
maybe a dream will come true.
we're only 4
We're only
minutes
several
in,
minutes in.
so there's time. There's time, but yeah, Severin Films is supposed to be releasing the documentary, and very strong rumors that that documentary will be part of a box set. And my wallet is already screaming, but it will gladly uh, pick up whatever Severin Films is laying down. I could say that
Yeah.
right now.
There's a lot of temptation out there for you and I in the physical media action world right now But suffice to say, this is a must-have once this one hits the streets.
Absolutely. I mean, because as great as these films are, and watching them either on YouTube or Tubi, or I do have some on physical media. Usually, they aren't the highest of quality. They're cropped most of the time, and these where this box set is going to be the restorations that another thing that Michael Worth has been very passionate about over the past few years, and he has put a few out here and there, but a box set would be I'd be all about it, all
A
about it,
one-stop shop, if you will.
indeed. And speaking of shopping, boy, has there been some news from your neck of the woods, Chris. Figures Toy Company
Oh, I
is
thought you were
on
talking about
fire.
all of the comic books that I've been buying for my son lately.
Well, there's that, but I was referring to Figures Toy Company. A lot of announcements, a lot of new figures out there. Uh, why don't you tell us about them?
Yeah, we just got our first delivery of the summer, and what a delivery it was. We've got a lot of new stuff and a lot of restocks and some popular sold out items. So we'll start with the new first. Obviously, we've always got the wrestling tie-in with this site, and we've got 5 brand new Legends of Professional Wrestling action figures, 4 of whom have never had figures before. And then that 5th one has not had an action figure since the heyday of the Attitude Era. So right now at figurestoycompany.com, you can get Dr. Tom Pritchard, Brad Armstrong, Mr. Hughes, Louis Spicoli, aka Rad Radford, and the first Savio Vega figure since the 90s. You can also check out the new offerings from the DC Comics side of things. We've got the Super Friends Retro Hawkman figure. We've got the DC Comics Retro Deadman figure. We've got a couple of new Scooby Doo villains. It's the vampire and the gypsy disguises from the Gaggle of Galloping Ghosts episode, one of the most famous episodes of season 1. We've restocked the 12-inch Kiss Love Gun figures. We've restocked the Mo, Larry, and Curly Dizzy Doctors figures, the Shemp Brideless Groom figure, the Rosemary from the Rising Stars of Wrestling, just a whole lot of stuff in stock now. We've got a lot more in the works, a lot more on the way later in the summer. You should start seeing releases from that very special project that we have been working on with Jim Cornette, along with more from DC, Scooby Doo, and other items. So keep tabs on us. Check out Figures Toy Company on all forms of social media. It's Figures Toy Company on Facebook and Instagram. It's at Figures Toy Co. on Twitter. The website itself is figurestoycompany.com. And then, as always, as I'm sure I'll plug again at the end of the podcast, but if you want to look up all of my FTC work and some of the stuff that we've got going on, it's also on my personal Twitter at Zach Malibu.
So there you go, folks. If you're not saving up for the Bruce Exploitation box set, maybe you want to take that money and go over and do a little figure shopping at Figure Store. I find it hard to believe that Mr. Hughes never had a figure,
Mr.
but
Hughes has never had a figure. He's never had any form of a figure. Never had
I mean,
Hasbro. Never had
yeah,
a.
I get it, but it's like when you said it, I'm like, that's, but I'm like, no, he really never has. And I mean, he was in WCW, he was in and out of WWE a couple times, he was in EC, yeah, very,
Very prominent in the mid '90s, and
yeah.
he's a guy that's still out there hustling.
And
I
I
know
mean,
that
he
he's
had such a
trained a lot
great
of
look
people.
too. Like that would have been a perfect fit. You'd think people would be rushing to get that figure. It looked, he had a cool look, but
Yep. And that's why we tackled it. We've got the soft goods on there, the button-down shirt, the suspenders, the pants. So, and and all of these people that have signed on, or the families, we've already sent theirs out, and I've heard great things from Dr. Tom Pritchard, from Brad Armstrong's wife, from Mr. Hughes. Everybody very satisfied, loving the fact that these figures have come out. This will be the last wave, other than the Cornet project, as I call it. This will be the last wave in the old classic superstar Jack style. Moving forward with whatever we do wrestling wise, we are going to lean more towards the modern articulation, similar to like a Mattel Elite. So this pretty much ends the run of completing a classic collection, and now it's onwards towards more of the as they would say in the Mattel line right now, more legends in our line that'll match up with the legends in their line.
excellent. And Savio Vega. I mean, that's what a pop he got not just too long ago.
Yeah,
What a
perfect
show
timing for that
Backlash was.
release.
Yeah, that was you guys did well there. So sometimes things work out, and that certainly is the case there. Kind of like when I talked to you and I said, you know what, Chad is not going to be able to record anytime soon, so we need to get something out there for the listeners of the Bulletproof Podcast. And I turned to my left and saw my miscellaneous action Blu-ray section, and I said, "Why don't we cover the Exterminator?" Because it was sitting there on my shelf, and I'm like, I have not watched that movie in years, and that is the scientific way we came up with the theme for episode 95, Chris.
That's it. Neither one of us had watched it in ages.
Yeah. So it was a perfect time to revisit. This one was released on September 19th, 1980. And, but make no mistake about this, Chris. This is a 70s movie. It has that 70s feel, that grittiness to it. I mean, New York
Mhm.
is not the family travel destination that it would become.
It is
Uh,
not. It was
it,
it was
it is
very slowly becoming what Death Wish 3 showed us it would be.
exactly it did. So yeah, directed by James Glickenhaus. Things start off with a bang, quite literally a huge explosion. We see this dude just launched in the air. We are in Vietnam, and we're there with Michael Jefferson, played by one of our all-time favorites, the late great Steve James, and John Eastland, played by also the late great Robert Ginty. And they soon find themselves surrounded by the Viet Cong and a familiar face as the leader there, Chris. And he has a machete.
Yeah,
Mr.
and we're not talking about Danny Trejo there.
No, no. George Chung, who's been in like a 50 billion things, but very
Yeah,
young George.
Rambo, Under Siege.
Mm-hmm. I believe maybe Rapid Fire. I'm not sure though. I'm sure now somebody is listening and they know that is either true and they're like good call or they're like you're an idiot. Either which way. But
You know what? I don't think he was in Showdown in Little Tokyo,
okay.
not
Yeah,
Rapid Fire, Showdown in Little Tokyo. He
thank
was
you.
also in one of our unheralded favorites that doesn't get a lot of love except from us, Death Ring.
Yes, Death. Yeah, I mean, again, he was in a lot of big production, he was all over the place. Um, he's got a machete. He nearly perfectly cuts a guy, American soldier's head off. I mean,
Yeah,
pretty.
in a very grisly slow motion. You want to talk about feeling raw. This was not like your quick,
Oh,
boom, fast cut. This was like slow and focused, and you're watching this unfold. And even though you know it's a dummy, pretty grotesque by action standards. This was more akin to like a horror movie killing.
yeah. Stan Winston was the man behind that bit of gore, which does not surprise me because the man is a genius with practical effects. And the same thing is about to happen to our man John Eastland. But I'll tell you what, Mike is to the rescue. And, Steve James already, I mean, well, this was before, I saw this well after I saw him in American Ninja and Avenging Force. But, I mean, Steve James or Delta Force, he is like the ultimate best friend in action movies. Like, he's the guy you want on your side because he is
Yeah, you
always there for you.
kick some ass with them, and then have a beer with them.
Exactly. So Mike saves John from that, and again, all this is happening. We're like 5 minutes in, and all this has happened. Explosion, guy flying in the air, guy getting his head cut off, Eastland almost getting his head cut off. The helicopter comes to get him out of there. This whole sequence, which again is just a few minutes, cost $400,000, which was 20% of the total budget. So maybe that could explain some of the things as we get into this later. Because to me, rewatching it, there were a lot of holes, a lot of questions I had as I was watching. I don't know if you had the same situation over there. But after Vietnam, we cut to the aerial view of New York City. We start with the Statue of Liberty. And this is basically the backdrop for the opening credits with the depressing song playing. Uh, and it's kind of matches the mood though about what we're about to see.
It's very countryish, very
Yeah, didn't really fit.
yeah. It did not fit the vibe of what we were about to see,
I mean,
and
the
obviously,
mood of it, like as far as just like it's kind of down and depressed. I mean, this is not an uplifting film,
no,
but
not at
yeah,
all,
you're right. It
not in
did.
any sense.
It kind of had a country twang to it. Yeah, I didn't care
It
for
didn't
the.
match the big city vibe.
No, it should have had. Yeah, you need some horns. You need some brass if you're talking that, or yeah, I don't know. Anyway, Mike and John, they basically load and unload trucks for a living now. And we
Just
see
blue
these
collar boys.
blue collar guys, still friends though, which is great. Mike spots some guys who are there to collect some protection money, which comes into play as we go on. But meanwhile, there are three members of the Ghetto Ghouls, including Irwin Keyes, who's a very recognizable individual. I certainly recognize him from Death Wish 4. And he's actually in the second Exterminator as a completely different character,
And
if
did you
you recall.
recognize? I do recall. I was going to ask if you recognized Ned Eisenberg, the leader of the Ghetto Ghouls,
You know,
who had appeared in quite a few different things, not always action films. Do you remember the fantastic 1980s comedy film Moving Violations?
vaguely. I mean, he
He
kind
with
of yeah, he had a familiar fit, but I couldn't pinpoint it. Obviously, Irwin Keyes is much more unique look.
oh,
Uh,
true. But
but
Ned Eisenberg actually became most famous for a recurring role on Law and Order Special Victims Unit, so very different from what he was portraying here.
so one would believe he was obviously a New York-based actor who stayed there the whole time
Hmm.
and picked up on the Law and Order. Um, so yeah, we've got these the ghouls. They've broken into one of the stalls of where John and Mike work. John goes to put a shipment into that same stall, and he's basically it's 3-on-1, and he seems like almost helpless, which is kind of interesting for where things are going to go here in a bit. But it's Mike again. Mike once again to the rescue. Johnny on the spot, but it's I guess Mikey on the spot. Uh, he's there again, Chris. I wanted if I wish I was friends with Steve James. That's all I have to say.
Especially if he works in a beer warehouse.
Yeah,
But and talking about like how raw the film was, I mean, when he comes to his aid, that final blow when he drops like the case of beer on the guy, I mean, it's almost like there was no fighting going on. It looks like what you would do like with your older brother. Like, I'm gonna get you. Like they were just kind of like tussling around. Like
yeah,
it didn't seem like John Eastland's life was totally in danger just yet. But Jefferson came and kicked some ass and saved his buddy.
yeah. It was kind of odd. So that happens. They're chased off. Um, but the ghouls, they hold a grudge. And now here's kind of I was a little confused with the timing. John invites Mike to go get a beer with him, but Mike says I got to go see my kids off to school first. So I guess they're working the night into the
Third shift.
yeah, because what is going on with he's going to what is Alexa saying back there?
Alexa, do you have thoughts on the Exterminator?
I don't know, I must have triggered something. Alexa, shut up. What's going on this episode? We do have a
Oh,
third stooge, and her name's Alexa. Uh, now she's heard me. Alexa, stop. Where was I?
don't say that word. It's like
I'm not.
Candyman.
I'm not going to. See, they're always listening. These devices are always listening to something. But no, they must be working the third shift. Because yeah, they're like, oh, let's go get a beer. Uh, but wait, no, I have to go see my kids off to school first. So that was kind of odd. But I guess that explains. And then I guess there's just people serving beer at 8 o'clock in the morning in New York.
I was just gonna say, I know that this is like old school New York when Times Square was like dirty and gritty and stuff, but would there be a bar open at 7 a.m., 8 a.m.?
I guess that was, yeah, a bit confusing. But again, I'm not from the city that never sleeps, so
Because mind you, these are younger children. We do see them at some point. It's not like his kids are going off to like a night school class and they're like
right.
teenagers or
They're not
something.
going to the, learning annex later in the evening. Yeah, no, that's not happening. So we on the way to go get this beer, Mike is attacked by the same ghouls, and they pull a little rest in peace Iron Sheik move and break his back, basically break his neck. I think they bust him up pretty good,
Yeah,
almost
they
kill
stick
him.
a hook in his back and kind of move it around.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, they make him humble for sure. And then we just cut to John. It's not the police. It's not the police who come find Mike's wife. It's John who finds his wife Maria with the kids at the playground, and he's the one who breaks the news that Mike is paralyzed for the rest of his life.
And what a place to do it. Like, the kids are at the playground, not, hey, like we need to go home, let's talk about it. Yeah, you're walking with the kids through the playground, they're all happy and stuff. By the way, your husband is paralyzed, wounded, attacked.
Yeah,
You got to have a little bit of tact, John Eastland, but as we find out, he does not have much of that, especially when it comes to the criminal element of New York City.
no, he does not. It just, again, this is kind of like, did we just not have the money to pay for two more people to play cops or something? I don't know. I don't know what was going on here, and we'll see it again later. We'll get to that though. John does capture one of the ghouls, not one of the three in question, but one of their running buddies, and does a little interrogating with his flamethrower, which is kind of the classic cover, even though that's not freaking.
Not his weapon of choice.
And it's not Robert Ginty on the cover either. It looks like a much cooler guy on the cover with the motorcycle helmet and muscles and a freaking flamethrower. I remember as a kid, at the video store, like, oh, that looks really cool, but I don't know. I probably wasn't. Probably my parents would not allow me to rent it, but or maybe there was just something in the back of my mind that said, just don't. You're not gonna like this as a kid, and I probably wouldn't have as a kid. But the ghoul gives up that, hey, we've got we got a house where we party. Clubhouse is what he referred to it as. So it's not the Mickey Mouse Club, that's for sure.
Oh, definitely
Um,
not.
John goes to this thing, and they are bumping the Tramps classic Disco Inferno. Another sign that this is very near the 70s. And it's our trio of bad guys who did in fact hospitalize Mike and nearly killed him. And they got some ladies, and they also have a cool Game of Death poster on the wall.
And yeah, mind you, that not only are the ladies there, but they're in the middle of certain activities. The girls are topless, taking their clothes off. They're doing drugs. They're having a grand old time. It's
It's a
it's a celebration for them.
it is a party, and I was really hoping that hearing Disco Inferno, that classic, would be the new earworm for me, but instead it's still this. And I've heard this like 2 weeks ago now, and I cannot stop with this freaking Jamaica ska, and I hold you directly responsible for it.
Because Back to the Beach is back on
Back to
streaming. It's on Pluto TV.
Yeah, back to the beach. What the hell was I? I turned on Pluto, and next thing I know, speaking of the Mickey Mouse Club, I got Annette Funicello on my screen dancing.
Back to the
Um,
Beach is an excellent movie. It'll never be covered on our site because it just doesn't fit the vibe. But I urge you all
you
to go and
if
watch
you
it.
if you could jam it in, you would figure out a way, and I don't
I
even think
would
you
definitely
could.
try to figure out a way.
Maybe Matt Spector would do a scene of the week, because he don't give a shit. So let's yeah. So John kicks in the door. He's got an M16. The girls get scared off pretty quickly, which I don't blame them once they put their tops on. He shoots one of the three. who basically tries to jump at him, captures and that guy really got off easy. The guy who got shot, he got easy because he takes the other two, ties them up, drags them down to the basement, and he just leaves them for the rats to eat.
And if it's one thing New York City is known for, it is the rat population.
Uh, Bad News Brown proved
I
it
was
with
just gonna I was just
SummerSlam
gonna make a
90.
Harlem sewer rat joke. So there you go. Reading my there's that ESP right there.
Yeah. So yeah, so yeah, they were if they were a problem in 90, they were in 80.
Definitely a problem in 1980.
Yeah. So there you go. Um so now John is back to work and he takes notice of these collectors. Again, it's kind of everyone just takes notice of these guys for their protection money. And we meet who these collectors presumably are working for. Gino Pontevini, the meat mobster, which is nothing
Very
like the
Italian
rock
man.
lobster, but yeah,
Oh, there's
Gino's
another
there.
earworm for you.
Yeah, exactly. Um, Now we're going to meet our detective James Dalton. He is played by Christopher George, and I have an interesting. Well, I don't know how interesting it is, but I have a personal connection to Christopher George.
Really?
Well, not really, but my I don't have a middle name because of Christopher George. Did you know that? Did you know that fun
I did
fact?
I did not know that fun fact.
I don't have a middle name. Both my grandfathers were named George, so it made sense that that was going to be my middle name. But I think my mom got cold feet when it came time because she's like, she didn't want people to associate me with the guy from the Rat Patrol which was a hit at the time or a well-known show at the time. So
Very
yeah,
well known show, yeah.
I had no. So instead of being Christopher George, she just didn't put a middle name down, and I never got a middle. So I'd never had an official middle name, all because of Christopher George, which I
Very
wouldn't
interesting.
mind being associated with him and his fine work.
Especially
And
because of the film that he did 1 year after this one.
oh my God, Mr. Venerius, in that office with the pool, beautiful. Christopher. Yeah, and he didn't live much longer. What did he do? Pieces with Bruce Lay. Interestingly
He
enough.
did he did Mortuary, which I
Okay,
have on Blu-ray but have not watched in a while.
naturally you would. So yeah, so Detective James Dalton, played by Christopher George of Enter the Ninja fame and Mortuary fame and Pieces fame and Rat Patrol fame. He's there on the case of these three dead ghouls. Uh, he heard, so he's going to go to his buddy, the bartender. And I did have an interesting tidbit about this bartender. Do you know who originally was supposed to be the bartender?
That I do not know.
Steve James. He was
Oh,
only supposed to have a small role, but they decided to give him give him the friend role. So he got it. So they just had some other random guy play the bartender, which was so a big break for Steve James there. Um, and the bartender tells Dalton about one of the girls he knows that hangs out with those three, named Candy, who she kind of hangs around at the old market area where the truckers go. And yeah,
her
she's
arms
like
are
a
all marked up.
yeah, she's got some
She's not a pillar
situation.
of the community.
No, she is not. The truckers don't mind her though. Um, and that's where Dalton goes. He finds her, arrests her. Must have his own special cool Detective Dalton interrogation area. He takes her there, and she's all befuddled and confused, as you would think she would be. And she might spend most of her life that way, but she cracks and apparently gives him a description of who this guy was, although I don't really know that ever really comes into play. I
No, yeah,
mean,
and that's an important tidbit for anyone who's listening and maybe hasn't seen it or hasn't revisited the movie in a while, is that John Eastland is not wearing the helmet that you see on the cover or disguising his identity. He's going out there full on Frank Castle Punisher style, no
yeah,
disguise,
yeah, he just kicks
and
that
just
door in and
targeting these punks.
has an M60. Yeah, he makes it pretty. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know if that helps. It doesn't really seem to come into play. So meanwhile, John goes to the hospital. He's visiting Mike, who's he can't really speak. He's on a respirator. He's like, again, he can't move. Obviously, he's in bad shape. But John is hoping that the news that, hey, I got the guys who did that to you, um, will at least cheer him up somewhat. I don't know, but and then mentions how it felt like he was back in Nam, and it didn't matter if it was right or wrong. He just did what he had to do. And then comes up with this: I figured out a way to get money for your family,
He's
and
gonna shake
obvious,
down the guy who's been shaking them down.
right? Which again, now we cut to our good friend, the meat mobster Pontavini, who's showing off his attack dog before taking his lady to a wonderful steakhouse in the city for dinner.
Foreshadowing.
Yeah. Here's no. All right. Well, there's a couple things I have a problem with this right here. Pontavini, first of all,
I remember reading your notes. I know what you have a problem with in
he
this.
gets he they get to this restaurant. Okay. So maybe instead of showing off your attack dog, maybe you should have done something else, because they get to the restaurant and he's like, before I have a meal, I better get rid of the last one. So he's like intentionally going to this restaurant to take a shit. Like, who wants to
And announcing it.
and
And
announcing it?
announcing it.
Who wants to take a shit in public if they don't have to? Like, I don't.
Nobody. Nobody. You
Like,
didn't even build a nest like you do in emergencies.
it's like, come. What? I mean, I could even see people who do it at work because they're there all the time. Like, well, screw you. You may as well pay me if I. But no, you're just going out to a restaurant. No, you nasty bastard. But here's the other thing I want to know: is this something regular? Was Eastland like staking this guy out for weeks to know that, oh, he's every time he goes to the
He's gonna
restaurant he has
take
to
a shit at this time.
takes the shit first, so I'm gonna hide in the fucking trash can and hope that nobody in between comes in there and throws something in there. I didn't understand that, but there he is. That's exactly what happens. His bodyguard goes in, checks the stalls, checks, nobody's in here. It's all clear, Mr. Pontavini. Go take your shit, you nasty fuck. Um, and he
It's
goes and
kind of
he
like in The
takes,
Godfather, how Tessio knew where to hide the gun. He's like, oh,
yeah,
they got one of the old toilets with the pull chain. Like, did you take
yeah.
a shit at every toilet in the 5 boroughs? How do you possibly know this off the top of your head?
He knew it. Yeah, he knew it. Um, so Tessio's there. No, Tessio wasn't here. So yeah, John's in the trash can. Mobster is washing his hands, which at least he washes his hands. I'll give him that much. But John sneaks up. He has a needle, syringe, I should say. Just boom, drugs him, knocks him out, drags him out the window. When Pontavini wakes up, this is probably one of the most famous scenes. This is definitely one of the things I remembered from the movie. He's chained up to the ceiling on a kind of a, and he rolls the industrial meat grinder right under his feet. And this is not a good situation if you're the meat mobster, Chris, and kind of a ironic situation as well that he may himself become meat.
Yeah, the that last bit of meat that comes out of the machine was looking a little extra bloody because John Eastland was not satisfied with the things that happened between he and Pontavini. Despite the fact that he had the mobster tied up, basically dead to rights, the mobster basically swerved him, and he paid for it.
He does, yeah. So he's like, I need money for my friend. And he knows he's got money because he's got guys collecting all the time. Pontavini's trying to be, obviously he knows he's kind of screwed, but he has a little swerve in there because he's like, here's the keys, here's the code for the alarm, the combination for the safe, here's everything you need. But he does not mention that attack dog that we met instead of him taking a shit. So John goes over there. The dog does attack him, um, and it does not end well for the dog. So I, I do believe John Wick would not be a fan of John Eastland.
No, yeah, this is not a scene that the ASPCA would be proud of.
No. He does go back, and he even says, "If you're lying to me, I'm coming back." Um, and Pontevini did in fact lie to him. And he goes back and starts doing some grinding. And I know one of the notes I saw on IMDb, or the kind of the goofs, is why do you see like no clothing or shoe like leather or any? It's like just like bloody meat. It's not like he was hung up there naked. So, but again, that's a detail that
I mean, we don't know. Maybe he took his shoes off. Maybe it was just like,
maybe,
bloody feet meat.
maybe that's true. It could be bloody feet meat. But obviously he doesn't like grind him. I don't. That's it. He's like in the hospital then, like all bandaged up like the mummy. So I don't know.
Yeah, very, it's a meat grinder, and they've got him wrapped up as if he fell in broken glass like Jigsaw in Punisher Warzone.
Right, or yeah, like yeah, he threw acid on him or something, or just burned him. I don't know. That part didn't make sense either. Um, so Dalton, detective, goes to try to question, but he can't talk. But Dalton makes the best of the situation though, Chris, because he picks up the doctor working there, Dr. Megan Stewart, and invites her out for a night picnic. What a smooth
Yeah, what
operator
is with
this
the
Dalton.
timelines? I got to get my kids off to school, even though it appears to be in the middle of the afternoon. I'm going out for a night picnic. Time,
Yeah,
time is not of the essence in the Exterminator.
it's probably just whenever they were able to film. I'm guessing. Again, they blew a good chunk of their budget at the beginning, so uh, now we get to meet a familiar face for you.
Uh
Not,
huh. I know who you mean.
I'm talking about the chicken pimp, and he's from one of
Tony
your
D.
Tony D from one of your all-time
Tony Di
favorites.
Benedetto, who actually played a character named Tony D.
Yep.
We can't go a Bulletproof podcast without mentioning the man, the myth, the dragon, Don Wilson, and
Don the
Tony Di
Dragon Wilson.
Benedetto was one of his prison buddies in Blood Fist 3 Forced to Fight, but he was also in quite a few action movies that you and I are fans of. He was in Raw Deal.
Mm-hmm.
He was in Marked for Death.
That's right. He
So
made the
he's been,
rounds.
yep, Hero and the Terror. He's been around the block. He's appeared with quite a few of the legends of Bulletproof action. But here he was, in Blood Fist 3, he was one of the good guys. This one, he is most certainly not a good
Oh,
guy.
he is one of the
Uh,
worst
yeah,
characters.
a very dirty, slimy character. Again, going along with the grittiness of late '70s, early '80s New York. He was a kidnapper, a torturer, a rapist, um, mainly young boys, but would not turn down the chance to abuse and hurt a young lady as well. And it's not long before he's caught the eyes of our exterminator.
Yeah, he has a great customer, one of his best customers, who we later learn is a state senator from New Jersey. Likes his young boys, but also likes to throw in a female in the mix every once in a while. And that's exactly where we see Chicken Pimp go after, finds a female hooker. But she's like, hey, I'm not into this scene. And the senator has a soldering iron and petroleum jelly, and this is not going to be good for this woman.
No, it
Fortunately, we
most
don't,
certainly is not.
but we don't see it because instead we cut to the romance that is blossoming between Dalton and Dr.
Yeah, what a
Megan.
transition.
Yeah, this is again very rough, very raw type movie because it's not even like it like goes to black. It's almost like it goes to commercial, but nobody's going to pay for commercial time on this. So it just goes, and then we start another scene. It's not really smooth how this thing unfolds.
Not as
Uh,
smooth as Detective Dalton is with his night
no, he's
picnics.
the night picnics, and yeah, he's got 2,000 suspects, but he's got time for Dr. Megan no matter what. The Meat Mobster is the top story on the news, and our actual news anchor, real life news anchor, reads a letter from the exterminator, basically saying, the streets of New York need to be cleaned up. Pontevini was only the first. I'm going for it. Which attracts the attention of the CIA for some reason.
Because
CIA
apparently in
agent.
1980, everything was still a conspiracy.
So yeah, so the election is near, and we've got this hard stance on crime and whatnot, or justice. I don't freaking know how they got to here, but basically CIA agent Shaw needs to take care of this exterminator because it does not look good for whoever, I'm assuming it's the president, but I don't know. He needs to be taken care of. It's an election year. Isn't it always an election year, though, people? Thank you.
Yeah, that
Uh,
wasn't there a purge election year?
yes, there was. There was. Maybe it may have been covered on our site. Check it out, folks. I don't remember. It wasn't covered by me. So meanwhile now John is just walking the streets. He's looking for trouble, basically. He's looking for people to clean up. And he happens to get approached by the hooker that was victimized by the perv at the chicken place. But she needs to pay bills. She's still got
And
to
we're
be
not talking about
working.
Chick-fil-A, folks. We mean the Pimp's Hideaway. This is not like an actual,
Right, right,
um, chicken fast food joint or something.
right, right. This could have been a Sunday anyway. So, uh, she picks him up. She's still got to work. She's a working girl. Takes him to the shitty motel that she always takes her Johns to, and he's literally a John, in this case, where you have to pay extra for the sheets. That's a classy operation. Um, they get up to the room. She starts to undress as working girls are wont to do, and that's where John sees all the nasty scars from her encounter with the perverted state senator and his soldering iron. And that's where she tells him about this chicken place, and he says no one will hurt her ever again, which is a bold statement to
It's
make.
bold, but it is something that he lives up to.
Well, in the case of these two guys, but what is he going to be with her 24/7? I mean, she's in a very dangerous profession.
This is true in a very dangerous area in a very dangerous time.
Right,
So,
exactly.
yeah, and we did see her in Exterminator too, so we got to wonder that she probably didn't make it.
No, so there you go. So then we see John making his own special bullets. We kind of get a look at his arsenal. Where he gets all this stuff from, I don't know. It's not like the Paul Kersey of Death Wish 3, where he's ordering the stuff and getting it sent to his P.O. box.
Yeah, he's a
Uh,
little more MacGyverish with his arsenal,
yeah. Yeah, he is.
putting mercury in the bullets.
And he goes, once he's ready to go, he goes to the chicken place, gains entry by telling the chicken pimp he has a 6-year-old boy and a 9-year-old boy he's ready to sell because their
Ugh.
mom just died of an overdose, so they got nothing anyway. And chicken pimp, obviously, that gains John entry into this disgusting establishment, and chicken pimp wants pictures, and that's what sets John off, and he beats the shit out of the guy, straps him to one of the beds, takes some lighter fluid, and burns that sick mother alive.
Well deserved.
Well deserved indeed. Burn, baby, burn. Then John, the perv guy, who just must have a permanent room at this place, comes out in the hall to see what all the commotion is, and that was a bad move. And we find out, or we see the aftermath of what John did to that senator. And it involves a great deal of blood on the back of his drawers.
And mind you that John did this because he caught the man not only in this establishment, which proves that yes, this is a bad man that needs to be taken care of, but he had what was a teenage boy
Teenage
tied
boy
up and
face down, nude on the bed. Yeah,
apparently, raping and abusing him. Um, and I mean, I will give some credit to the uncomfortableness of the scene. Even when John Eastland's trying to help the young man, he is not trusting of it. He thinks he's about to be hurt or victimized again.
right.
And John Eastland's basically like, get up, get dressed, don't worry about it. And good for John Eastland for taking some of the scum off that because even long before I was a father, that is a huge uh,
Oh,
pet peeve of criminal. right there. And especially now that I am a dad, you
Right.
see anyone who's hurting a kid, it kind of draws your ire very much so. So even to
Absolutely.
see it in film when you know it's fake and they're just actors getting paid for a job, it's always good to see vigilante justice come through.
Yeah, that's yeah, definitely no one would, I'm sure, they say that the original Death Wish, like people were cheering in the theaters when Bronson started, you know, killing the muggers in New York City. I would not be shocked if people were cheering at this point when these two sick bastards get what's coming to them. Dalton does get word that Agent Shaw of the CIA wants to talk to him, and Dalton's like, "What the hell does the CIA need to talk to me about?" I agree, Dalton. What the hell does the CIA have to do with any of this? But I'll tell you who he doesn't blow off, Chris. His lady
Dr.
doctor.
Megan.
Yeah, Dr. Megan. She calls. He's cooking a hot dog with some d- system he's got working in his office with his lamp and anyway, he's cooking his hot dog.
I mean, is it any worse than anything you could have gotten out of a cart at that time?
No, he's cooking his hot dog, hoping she'll be cooking his hot dog later because she invites him out to a jazz concert. And again, and this is where I was talking about. He's like, "Oh yeah, we're working on this case. There's about 2,000 possible exterminator suspects. You would think he'd be putting in some extra hours. Nah,
You would think, but no.
nah, he's got nothing but time for the doctor. So yeah, I'll go to this jazz concert with you. Um, they kind of start to get to know. She bumps into an old friend. Obviously, she had some crazy college fun, but our man Dalton was over in Nam,
Much
not
like our
having fun.
heroes were. But you would think with
Mm-hmm.
all of the money spent on the Vietnam flashback, we might have gotten something for Dalton's past, and we don't. We just hear him
No,
say, "Yeah, I was in Nam."
well, probably wasn't. He was probably on set limited days they had on Christopher George. He was a big star. The Ghetto Ghouls, meanwhile, they're still at it. They're doing what they do. They're being ghouls of the ghetto, and they mug a poor old lady who's walking home with groceries. Uh, a guy drives by on his motorcycle. Good for him. He sees this and is like, "Hey, come on, guys! What this ain't right."
Good
Uh,
Samaritan, good citizen.
Good Samaritan, indeed. But then John comes in, sneaks up behind this guy who's just trying to help this lady, and is like, "Don't move. I'm gonna." He takes his bike, takes his helmet, and he gives
Yeah, the
chase.
hero robs the good Samaritan.
Yeah, the hero robs the good Samaritan, and he basically then he keeps that motorcycle for the remainder. So yeah, another just oddball thing about this movie. Um, they stop at a red light. John blows one of the ghouls away. The other two burn rubber. So the chase continues. John wipes out though, and falls off the bike. Now they're chasing him, but that that still doesn't. It doesn't. It ends about as poorly as possible for those guys chasing him. They should have just kept going. They should have got the hell out of there. They would have been alive, at least for now.
And that
So,
leads us to our authority figures.
oh yeah. So now, yeah. After that, now that's the crime scene where these guys are dead. Dalton is there and he's investigating. Agent Shaw shows up and is like, "Hey, you're not being very cooperative. Blah blah blah. Election year. All this." And Dalton hits probably the best line in the movie when he says, "I think you have to take a shit and it's coming out of your mouth instead of your asshole."
Great line.
Brilliant line. Christopher George, Detective Dalton. I guess James Glickenhaus, you are the writer as well as the director, so good on you for that line. Um, but again, blows off Agent Shaw. Who's the first person he calls? Dr. Megan. Let's meet up. Oh, I have to work late, but some of the nurses keep a empty hospital room for such situations.
Scandalous.
Yeah. So Dalton's gonna go have some hanky panky in an empty hospital room. Since Dr. Megan's on call all night. At this very same hospital is where Mike Jefferson is, and John once again is there to visit. Uh, Tells him that Maria finally accepted the money that he procured from the mobster. I'm sure he didn't tell her that. Um, and then they have a conversation. Well, it's very obviously Mike can't talk, so he has to communicate by blinking,
One-sided.
and basically agrees to John just mercy killing him. So
Thus
yeah,
ends Steve James's tenure in the
Steve. Yeah,
Exterminator 1.
it almost like why didn't they just kill him? But I guess it kind of puts John in the hospital at the same time as Dalton, so that does make sense. The alarm goes off because obviously there's a patient freaking flatlining in your hospital, which ruins the fun of Dalton and Dr. Megan. Um, Dalton's kind of just in the hall getting dressed from his just before he was about to score there, and our man he sees John getting in the elevator. John's like, "Hey, your fly's down," and as soon as those doors close, Chris, he's like, "I think that was the freaking exterminator."
And
So
we're
now,
slowly getting to the revelation of the realization that he's narrowed down his 2,000 suspects, which he
right,
hasn't spent much time doing,
yeah, just
and now
just
all of a sudden thinks he's found his guy.
fell ass backwards into that one. So, yeah, I guess his boss can't. Like, where were you? I was hooking up with my nerd or my doctor friend, and but you know what? It was a good thing because I think I may have solved the case. So yeah, he goes back to the precinct, goes to his office, starts getting ready to go exterminator hunting. Gets confirmation that in fact that Eastland was in the 144th Ranger Division with Mike Jefferson. And so now they think they got their man, so they're going to go to John's place. But John's not there because once again, it wasn't the hospital that called Maria. It wasn't the police. It was John who goes over to tell Maria that Mike is dead.
Yeah, they should change the name to the Bearer of Bad News, and I think Robert Ginty would have been just fine in the role because, man, he is just delivering bad messages to
Yeah,
everybody this movie.
yeah. And it's like he can't. Like, yeah, there's people who. Anyway, the bearer of bad news indeed. So when John heads back to his place on his stolen motorcycle, he notices a sniper on the roof of his apartment building. So he's like, "Yeah, I don't think I should go there," which is smart. Then he goes to a payphone, calls his number, and Detective Dalton, who's they're like, well, he's not here. We'll just wait for him to come home. He's got to come home sooner or later, which is smart thinking. Dalton picks up, and we get the old meeting place. Meet me at the Brooklyn Naval Yard at Crane number 5, which is unlike Mambo number 5. If you want another earworm, um, basically, come alone or die. But somebody was in on that conversation, Chris. I don't know
Yeah,
how.
much like Alexa listening to us earlier, even in
Right?
1980,
I don't.
Big Brother
Yeah.
was listening. So
Uh,
Agent Shaw is catching wind of the situation.
how did he? I guess maybe he got word that the cops were going to. Uh, I don't know. He was listening. So anyway, here it is. Here's our big finale. John is there, and it looks like he's going to actually give himself up. He's giving the gun to Dalton. But somebody from out of nowhere shoots freaking Dalton, and we see Shaw, and he's got a sniper off in the distance. Dalton's like, "You better get the hell out of here!" To John. John goes towards. He gets shot, plunges into the water. Dalton is shot again, I guess to get rid of any loose ends. He's dead, but we find out Eastland had a bulletproof vest on. He swims to shore, and he'll be ready to exterminate again just a few
How did
years later.
Dalton not think that maybe Eastland brought a sniper and set him up? Why was he instantly ready to help him escape? How did he not think that he was getting set up? Like, hey, you think I'm the exterminator? I'm going to have someone kill you off.
And why didn't he wear a bulletproof vest?
Also true.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions, and we're to the end here. So let's give our final thoughts on this. There are some movies that the more I watch them, I love them. I found myself the opposite here. Like I was like, "Oh yeah, The Exterminator. I haven't watched that in forever. I should watch that again." And I'm watching it, I'm like, "This isn't a very good movie." The premise is there. The idea is there, obviously. I mean, it's a freaking vigilante movie. Yeah, that works. But there's so many questions, like the ones you just posed, the ones I've been posing throughout about the meat mobster. How did he know the meat mobster goes to take a shit before he eats a steak? How? Why is this happening? Why is the CIA involved? What election? Who? Why? What? When and where? Lots of questions, Chris.
Yeah, it's a fun movie. I don't know if I would call it a classic. I think the image, like the portrayal of the Exterminator, especially like that cover art, the video store era, kind of gives it a little bit more of a legacy than it should actually have.
Yeah.
I enjoy the movie, but watching it again, you know, to your point, it's a reason why I could watch Martial Law 1 and 2 anytime we see it on Pluto TV, but The Exterminator, I could go years
Yeah.
without watching it. It's not one that I tend to revisit often because it's so rough. And I like a good rough movie, but I think that James Glickenhaus did it much better further up in the 80s when he did things like Maniac Cop.
Yeah. This again, yeah, I'm with you because it could be another 10 years before I watch this, and I'll be fine. But I will watch every Death Wish movie available to me. If I we stop recording after this and I turn on the TV and Death Wish, any of them, even five are on, I'll sit there and watch it. But Exterminator, I mean, again, it has its moments, but I don't know. I don't, a lot of holes in this movie. And I suppose there's a lot of holes in a lot of the movies I like, but for some reason these were bothering me this watch.
I may have seen Exterminator 2 more than I've seen Exterminator 1, but
And
that's probably also due to the fact that it's
it has cannon dust
under the
on it.
Canon banner.
Yeah, that was my other thought was we should have watched Exterminator 2. That would have
And
been good.
and Robert Ginty, I mean, I get that they were going for the whole, Paul Kersey, your average ordinary guy, but he's got a past that allows him to do this type of stuff. Um, Not particularly charismatic.
No, and that
Very,
was the other thing I wanted to point out at the beginning was, like he's getting bullied in that stall by the three ghouls, and then next thing you know, he's just a killing machine. It's like there's no progression. Like with Paul Kersey, there was a progression. First he went and got the sock with the quarters in it, and that kind of gave him that power. Like, oh my god! And then he goes off and gets this gun that was a gift, and now he's like, well, I got this gun. If the quarters worked, this freaking gun will certainly work. And even after that first kill, you see Kersey throwing up. I mean, it affected him, where it's just like old John Eastland goes from basically mild
just finding
mannered
new ways to torture people.
blue collar guy to I'm now this killing machine in no time flat. I don't know. Yeah, we should have watched Exterminator 2. If you love this movie, I'm sorry if I'm kind of shitting on it, but
We've we've got plenty of podcasts to go. I'm sure we'll get around to Exterminator 2. And like
I'm
I
sure we
said,
will.
I can't say I hate it. I mean, but it's not
No,
one
I don't hate it, but
like
it's
we
just yeah,
it'll probably be a while before that Blu-ray of yours gets put back into the machine.
right. It's going back into the archives where it will sit there in miscellaneous action section because
And maybe in the like in 7 years we'll do a 50-year retrospective.
I don't have I don't have a huge Robert Ginty collection. Truth be
Lady
told,
Dragon.
I do, yeah, but I don't have that on Blu-ray. Do I
I
have
don't
it?
think anyone has that on Blu-ray.
No, it
Hopefully,
doesn't
Vinegar
exist. I don't
Syndrome.
even think I have it on DVD. I think, or is that Lady Dragon 2 that I now have on Laserdisc? That's right, folks. All right, but yeah, I'm sure at some point we will cover Exterminator 2, but that was Exterminator from 1980, James Glickenhaus, Robert Ginty film. And you know what, Chris? As I always do on this program, I encourage everyone to check out bulletproofaction.com. the official website of the Bulletproof Podcast, where we review movies. We have special features on movies. And I know you'll be reviewing something you're very excited about, and a lot of people are excited about The Flash. That is your next
Yes.
review.
It will be. It will go up. I'll be seeing it on Father's Day. That's going to be the treat from my wife and my son. We're all going to go see it as a family. The Flash being my favorite DC comic superhero aside from Batman, so it's great that I'll get both of those heroes in this film. I am very trepidatious going in, due to not being so much of a fan of Ezra Miller's portrayal, and also knowing that
Right.
this is basically the reset button for the DC cinematic universe. But we'll see. They do have a recipe for some entertainment there. Obviously the nostalgia factor with Michael Keaton is playing a big role in the marketing, and we'll see how big of a role he plays in the actual film itself. But you can expect a no surrender cinema review of The Flash going up on Monday.
Very excited about that. Always excited about any post that I don't have to actually write. So that's good. Speaking of nostalgia, Chris, I plan on covering for the very first time, putting it to the checklist test, an randomly selected episode of Thunder in Paradise.
Oh yeah, brother. Talk about something I haven't revisited in a while.
Right. I know I saw a few episodes here or there when it originally aired, but it wasn't something I was religiously watching. So I'm anxious to go back and see the Hulkster and friends do their thing, try to capture some of that Baywatch magic that was going on back then. Didn't quite work out, but maybe my checklist will be able to determine why that was. That's always what I try to do. So that's what I know for sure I have coming up. And we'll see what else. I do know what we're going to be doing because we're going to be back together again next week, Chris, because Chad will still be on assignment. And we're going to cover another of the movies that was in my random Blu ray action section. We're going to Angel Town next week, Chris.
Yeah, and that is one that it's been a little while since I've watched it, so I'm going to rewatch it this week. But I feel like you wrote about that fairly recently.
I definitely I reviewed it and then I did a 10 things because there was a commentary track on the Blu-ray. I'm not sure how recent that would have been. I could look that up though, utilizing the search feature on bulletproofaction.com.
But that is a fun one, and that's one that you and I have both enjoyed, but one that usually doesn't get a lot of play, doesn't get a lot of love. I
And
know it's
that's
popped up on things like Tubi and stuff, but
yep.
it's not one that's usually in the discussion of the video store era martial arts boom.
Here's your you want to talk about recent and whatnot. The review I did was in 2015 and the 10 things was in 2018.
Wow, it does not feel like. I mean, 2015 was actually before my time,
Yeah, it
and
was an
20
early one. I think I found it on YouTube, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll watch this. But yeah, and then they put the Blu-ray out probably in 2018, and shortly
2018.
thereafter, I did the 10 things. So yeah, it's been a. I think I've watched
It's
it
been a while.
since, but again, I'm always happy to watch that. The first one for Olivier Gruner or Oliver Grunner, if you want, however you want to say it. It doesn't matter to me. But we're going to be talking about that one. Again, A Star is Born, as I remember on the poster, maybe even on the cover of the VHS. They had high hopes for Olivier.
And he did actually, as far as our hopes and dreams, he achieved them because he put out quite a few films that we are a fan of.
He absolutely did. And Angel Town is up there. I would think my favorite would be Automatic, but Angel Town's pretty good. Hopefully somebody puts out Automatic.
Automatic was good. Savat.
Savat is a good one. There's Nemesis, which eh, I like it. I certainly like it more than I like the sequels. But yeah, we're going to be doing that. It's our first time talking about a Gruner film here on the Bulletproof Podcast. So, of course, this was our first time talking about a Ginty film today. So, we're crossing off names off the list.
That's it, and it's quite a long list, so we've got plenty of people to talk about. Maybe we'll have to do some more Bruceploitation in the near future to
Yeah.
kind of commemorate and celebrate
Yeah,
these upcoming
when that
releases.
Blu-ray set comes out, yeah, we definitely have to. Either with or without Mr. Worth. But yeah. All right, folks. Thank you so much. We're glad to kind of get this show back on track. I know we missed last week. We will be back next week with Angel Town. Thank you again, Chris.
You're
And thank
welcome.
you, everyone, again for listening. And as always, stay tuned for more of the Bulletproof Podcast.